The Omo River, also known as the Serpent River, churned violently under the midday sun. This was a land where life and death were defined by primordial, unforgiving laws. The water was dark, thick, and flowed fiercely, a constant reminder of the invisible danger lurking beneath. On a day like any other, amidst that ferocity, a contrasting sight drew all eyes. A brilliant, delicate golden butterfly, fluttering slowly over the water surface. Where there is fragile life, there is attention. And the lion cub Leo, only a few months old, was mesmerized by that shimmering gold. In a moment of innocent, reckless curiosity, Leo chased the butterfly right to the edge of the slippery rocky bank. A single careless slip, and the cub plunged into the icy water. Amidst the roar of the current, Leo desperately grasped a piece of floating driftwood, a makeshift raft in an ocean of fear. This was Leo, and a single moment of curiosity had set him adrift in the vortex of an ancient fear. Not far away, Alara, the park ranger, was silently patrolling with her four-legged companion, Max the dog. Alara didn't come to Omo to confront nature. She came to protect its delicate balance. In her pocket, she carried the park's strict law. Do not interfere in predator-prey encounters. But in her heart, she carried a different principle: compassion. She believed that sometimes human intervention wasn't about breaking the law, but about pulling a golden thread that connected life in a chain of desperate moments. Max suddenly stopped, his body rigid, ears perked toward the river. Beneath the dark surface, a massive shadow began to move. It was Scar, the oldest, largest, and most dangerous crocodile of the Serpent River. It had spotted its solitary, easy prey. The time had come for Alara to face her toughest choice. Max's low growl was an unmistakable warning. Alara, the park ranger, quickly raised her binoculars. It took her a few seconds to penetrate the blinding glare reflecting off the water. But when the image sharpened, she recognized the unfolding tragedy. The driftwood, the small, soaking wet lion cub Leo clinging to it, trembling. And most importantly, she saw the dark mass approaching, Scar. The crocodile did not move fast, but the certainty in its every movement was more terrifying than speed. It advanced like a submerged submarine, leaving only faint ripples on the water surface. Scar relied on stealth and fear. It was closing the distance. Through the lens, Alara could clearly see Leo's desperate, golden eyes. The cub began to shake violently, not from a cold, but from sheer terror. A small, choked plea escaped its throat, a hopeless cry sent into the open air. Alara knew she was standing at a difficult moral crossroads. The reserve's law was clearly etched, strictly prohibited to interfere with the natural process between predator and prey. Violating this rule could cost her the career she had spent her life building. She was a conservation expert. She understood that human intervention could have unpredictable consequences for the ecosystem. Yet, staring directly into the absolute horror on Leo's face through her binoculars, Alara couldn't stand idly by. This wasn't just survival. It was a massacre, and she had the means to prevent it. She didn't see prey. She saw a small creature facing an undeserved death. Scar suddenly accelerated. Its massive snout began to break the surface. Its rough, scaled skin, dull yellow eyes, and jagged jaws were now clearly visible. The moment of confrontation had arrived. Leo let out a final, desperate scream, clinging to the driftwood with all his remaining strength. In a split second, Alara had to make a decision that would change not only Leo's fate, but her own career. She looked at Max, who stood perfectly still, sharp eyes awaiting a command. Leo's life was measured in seconds. Alara took a deep breath, cast aside the cold rules, and chose to act based on compassion. Time seemed to freeze on the Serpent River. Scar's snout was mere feet from the driftwood. The razor-sharp jaws were ready to snap shut. Leo the cub could only cling and scream in vain. Alara knew she had run out of time to weigh ethics against regulations. If Leo died, he would die because of her hesitation, She couldn't shoot the crocodile directly without endangering Leo or escalating the conflict. She needed a non-lethal intervention that would create absolute chaos. She quickly retrieved the emergency flare gun from her backpack. Alara aimed, not at Scar, but at the murky water right next to its snout. She pulled the trigger, piercing his tore through the deadly silence of the wilderness. The flare shot out and hit the water with a loud sizzle, instantly erupting into a blinding stream of crimson light and thick smoke. The sight was stunning. The intense red fire vividly illuminated the dark water and the crocodile's scaly hide. Scar recoiled violently. As a creature that relied on stealth and shadow, its ancient mind was completely overwhelmed by this alien, unnatural sight and sound. The killing bite missed its target. It submerged slightly, hiding in the murky water, confused by the heat and the dazzling light. This sonic and visual intervention lasted only seconds, but it was the precious time Alara needed. She turned to Max, her eyes conveying a silent but intense command. "Go, Max, save him." Max didn't need a second order. With incredible speed and power, the German Shepherd plunged straight into the dangerous Omo River. Despite being an alien environment for an onshore patrol dog, Max did not hesitate. He swam like a torpedo, creating powerful wakes as he headed straight for the driftwood. Alara watched Max's every action, her heart pounding in her chest. The dog was swimming, not to fight Scar, but to implement the shield strategy. Max reached the driftwood, barking loudly to keep the crocodile's attention. Then, he used his wet nose to gently but firmly nudge Leo, an urgent offer of help, a guide to safety. Leo, completely exhausted and disoriented, stared into Max's steady eyes. The cub did what instinct should have forbidden. He let go of the driftwood. Leo entrusted his life to this strange, non-threatening creature. With a final burst of strength, he began to swim alongside Max. Max circled Leo, placing his body between the cub and where Scar had just submerged. The rescue was not a battle, but a protective escort. Finally, Alara sighed in relief as the weak cub and the strong Max emerged onto the muddy riverbed, where ancient tree roots formed a natural barrier. Scar, realizing it had been outsmarted and deterred by the presence of the two intruders on the bank, fully submerged, retreating into the river's depths. Leo was safe. Leo dragged his exhausted body onto the mud, gasping for air. His whole body trembled uncontrollably. He was saved, but the shock of the near-death encounter was still evident. Alara quickly approached, keeping Max slightly behind. She knew that even though Max had just saved Leo's life, the cub's wild instinct might see the dog as the next threat. She needed to maintain distance, respecting the fragile boundary between intervention and intrusion. In the moment of silence, with only the sound of the flowing river and Leo's labored breaths, something extraordinary happened. The cub and the dog looked at each other. It wasn't the gaze of enemies or predator and prey. Max stood firm, his eyes conveying calm and relief. Leo looked back, not with aggression, but with confusion and perhaps a glimmer of instinctive gratitude. After the most terrifying moments of his life, the cub recognized that this strange, four-legged creature meant him no harm. Alara knelt down, assessing Leo's condition from a distance through her binoculars. She noted a small scratch on his leg, but more importantly, the flame of survival in his eyes had not extinguished. She gently stroked Max's head, whispering words of praise. The dog responded with a slight tail wag, seemingly understanding that the most dangerous task was complete. But the moment of peace did not last long. Suddenly, Alara heard a loud roar echoing from the thick bush. The roar was not a sign of attack, but the frantic, desperate call of a mother searching for her lost child. "It's his mother," Alara whispered, relieved. Just minutes later, the riverside reeds were torn apart, and the lioness Seraphina appeared. She was a large, powerful female, her eyes burning with anxiety. She rushed to Leo, completely ignoring the presence of Alara and Max. The reunion was emotional. Seraphina gently nudged her snout against Leo, licking her son's soaking wet fur. reassuring him with warm rumbles. Leo nestled into his mother, all tension dissolving in the familiar warmth. Alara signaled Max to retreat further, hiding in the tall grass so as not to disturb this sacred moment. She had accomplished her mission, holding the line between life and death long enough for the law of nature, the law of maternal love, to prevail. After Leo was safely nestled beside his mother Serafina, the pair silently retreated, disappearing deep into the bush. In a final moment, Leo turned his head, seemingly registering the image of the two strangers who had prevented him from succumbing to death. Alara and Max remained still on the muddy riverbank. The reunion they had just witnessed was not just the end of a rescue. It was the confirmation of the belief Alara had always held. Moral intervention doesn't ruin the laws of nature, but sometimes it is the prerequisite for those laws to continue. Alara gently patted Max's flank. The German Shepherd didn't understand the complexities of ethics or conservation law, but he acted on pure loyalty and courage. Max was living proof that bravery is not limited by species, and conviction can overcome all survival instincts. In that moment, Max was more than a working dog. He was a guardian angel sent from the other side of the civilized world. The survival of the cub Leo was a profound lesson for Alara and for everyone about the limits of indifference. Alara realized that the boundary between letting nature take its course and saving a life is incredibly fragile, but she believed she had made the right choice. She chose to act based on compassion, an element often forgotten in the harsh world of survival. Now, the story sends a powerful message to the outside world. We all face our own serpent river, those moments when we feel isolated, exhausted, clinging to our own makeshift driftwood, facing this scar of our lives. It could be illness, failure, or sudden crisis. This story reminds us we are not meant to face those moments alone. Intervention, compassion, and connection, whether from family, friends, or a stranger, are indispensable sources of strength that allow us to overcome. Alara and the other rangers are the guardians of that belief. They're the last line of defense, protecting vulnerable creatures like the cub Leo, acting not for fame, but out of love and responsibility for life. They need support from the global community. The setting sun painted the sky red. Alara stowed her flare gun and walked away with Max. Behind them, the river flowed on, telling the tale of a lion-cub rescue, a heroic dog, and a woman who dared to cross the boundary of silence. The survival of one species often depends on the intervention of another. This is the improbable alliance forged on the banks of the Omo River. Let this story be your reminder to seek out the life that needs saving, even if it is not a lion cub. That is what truly defines us. If this story touched you, if you believe in the power of a compassionate act, please support the global conservation community. Like this video, subscribe to the channel for more whispers from the wild, and let us know in the comments. Who is your Max in this life?